Hello, my name is Marc Pointus, and today I'm presenting my capstone project for the new Forest Cohort 11 program, Mobile Food Vendors in the Greenbrier Valley. So, the purpose of my project is to conduct an exercise on performing data analysis for a small business or startup company, so that if a company is interested in hiring an analyst for their own purposes, I'll already have this project in my portfolio as experience. The business I chose is something that I'm interested in, but don't know too much about. I decided to combine my love of cooking and my desire to serve my community into a hypothetical food truck that could operate in the Greenbrier Valley, where I live. I've used my skills as an analyst to answer the following questions. Is it viable to open a food truck in the Greenbrier Valley? If so, what food would we serve? How much would we charge? What would our startup costs look like? How many customers would we need to break even? And what would our revenue projections potentially look like? So the tools I used for this project was primarily Python. I used Python to perform a lot of the web scraping of the local websites in the Greenbrier Valley to get a feel for the local food service environment. I also used Python heavily for manipulating the very large data sets that provided a great deal of demographic and food consumption information. I used Excel a lot more than I thought I would, mainly for cleaning data and pivoting data for use in Power BI. And I chose Power BI for this presentation for its interactive features. Also, I thought it was the best for handling these relationships between the large number of datasets that I ended up using. So just a little bit about the Greenbrier Valley. It's that area of West Virginia that contains the Greenbrier River. It consists of Monroe County to the south, Greenbrier County to the north, and Pocahontas County even further north. This is the region of West Virginia that I've pulled the following information from. So this is just some overall demographic information for the Greenbrier Valley. The population is around 52,000 people, so it's sparsely populated. And like other places in West Virginia, the population has been declining through the years. Greenbrier County houses the most of the population. The median age is around 48 years, with a high average age around the 60s. This suggests a typically older population. Most people in the Greenbrier Valley have at least a high school education, and the median income is around 48,000. There's a large average of high income earners here as well, generally clustered around the Greenbrier Resort, which is located in White Sulphur Springs. Most of the job titles here contain white collar occupations: office, management, sales, administrative. These suggest more of a white collar population with a small amount of disposable income. So here is a population density map of all the major towns in the Greenbrier Valley. The larger and darker the circle, the larger and more dense the population. Lewisburg and areas around Lewisburg, Ronceverte, White Sulphur Springs, they contain the largest density of people in the area, with Lewisburg not only containing the highest population, but also the highest median income. This area here is where we would want to target our business operations. So here's some food consumption information for the Greenbrier Valley. Food away from home spending is how people are spending their money on food outside of the house. When people go out to eat, they favor fast food, followed closely by standard restaurants. And this little sliver here is the money spent per year on mobile food establishments. And this can be interpreted in one of two ways. Demand may be low for mobile food vendors, or there's an untapped market here for food vendors in the Greenbrier Valley. The most popular meal for people when they go out is dinner, followed by lunch and then breakfast. How people spend their money at the grocery store. This is mostly meat, not only because meat is generally the most expensive, but also people are willing to spend money on meat at the grocery store. This suggests a meat-eating population, a population that incorporates protein heavily into their diet. The most popular times to eat are, no surprise here, noon, most popular time of day, followed by 6 o'clock. That would be lunch and dinner. These times would serve as our primary operating windows. So here's some data that's scraped from Google Analytics and Google Places. It forms a comprehensive data set of all the major restaurants in the Greenbrier Valley. From what we saw earlier, dinner is the busiest time for restaurants, as most people favor dinner when they go out to eat. The average meal price per person is between $10 and $20, overwhelmingly. That's the target price people are willing to spend when they go out. Then over here, we have the top 10 restaurant types: American, fast food, pizza, pub grill, diner, sandwiches. Minus pizza, all these fall under the umbrella of comfort food. This is down home, familiar food. This is the type of food that we would want to think of serving for our food truck. So here's a comprehensive list of all the major food truck events in the Greenbrier Valley. These take place within the food truck season. The season is typically from the start of April to the end of October. We've identified 15 major food truck events with a total of 41 major event days that we would want as a minimum of operation days for the season. Starting in early May, we have the Ronceverte Food Truck Festival. Right off the bat, the thumbnail shows the location, start and end dates, and the time period it occurs. Here is another example. In mid-July, we have Pioneer Days in Marlinton. This is a great and lesser known festival. And in mid-August, this is the West Virginia State Fair. This takes place in our backyard in Lewisburg. This is not only the longest major event in terms of operation days, but also the most populated. Securing operation at the state fair would be imperative for the success of the food truck. The state fair is the moneymaker of the season. So here is some analysis that's been gathered from the menus of local food trucks in the area that were scraped online on local websites. There are 16 major food trucks that frequently operate in the Greenbrier Valley, with an average of 12 items per menu. The average price of a protein-based dish is around $12, and for a non-protein dish, it's about half that, around $6. Now, these graphs here show how pork and barbecue are very well represented in the food truck community here, in terms of most commonly sold and highest priced. What I noticed is that chicken is an underrepresented protein among these food trucks. However, when chicken is sold, it's the second highest priced on the menu. This might suggest a gap in demand for chicken-based items. Also here, I just wanted to show how drinks are maybe an understated or underrated part of the menu. Drinks are the most commonly sold item and usually contain the highest profit margins, especially when it comes to specialty drinks. I identified a vendor who has specialty drinks on their menu. Specialty drinks are drinks that typically combine two or more beverages, like a sweet tea and a soda, or a soda and an energy drink component. I found that when you feature a specialty drink on your menu, you can charge up to 4 times more than a normal drink. So here is some separate market research that I found from data that has already been analyzed and published. The clip on the left comes from TasteWise. They publish a yearly pamphlet on restaurant trends nationwide. This backs up my finding on the rising popularity of meat and protein among consumers, and how the word protein is becoming sort of a buzzword. And the bottom clip here shows an extremely sharp rise in the demand for energy drinks, something TasteWise has dubbed the energy drink arms race. Now the clip on the right is a map that comes from Foursquare's massive location database. It shows the most popular fast food restaurant in every state. Here in West Virginia, the most popular fast food chain is Chick-fil-A, and that's a restaurant that specializes in chicken dishes. It reinforces how popular chicken items and fast food, comfort food, are in this region. So with all this research we've looked at so far, I went ahead and crafted some rough draft menus here. I wrote out the menu items, I gave them a title, gave it an approximate price for now, and tried to adhere to the insights we've gained so far. This has an emphasis on chicken dishes. There's things like chicken and dumplings, chicken biscuits, chicken dinner combos, chicken and gravy. This is a menu that adheres to the 12-item average we saw earlier. It stays within the $10 to $20 price range we looked at. It respects that dinner, lunch, breakfast ratio we saw earlier, and it also contains a specialty drink on the menu. So next, we wanted to look at startup costs for the food truck. Now, this is based on scraping multiple online resources to give us a sense of average expenses. In total, the average startup cost for a food truck is around $150,000. The truck is obviously going to be your largest and most important expense, followed by cooking equipment and permits and licensing. Now, the resources that I looked at had a wide range of estimated costs for these things. So I thought it was important to add a maximum estimate and a minimum estimate just to show the disparity. For our purposes, we are going to be using the average cost for these for our break even and revenue calculations. Next, we have our monthly operating costs. These are set up in the same way as our startup costs, so that we have food and beverage as our main cost, followed by repairs and maintenance. The articles I read really emphasize setting enough money to handle repairs in case of an emergency. That way, if you break down, you're not losing any business days of operation. Then you have your fuel for the truck and your cooking equipment. And again, we're going to be using the average cost here to determine our break even and revenue numbers. So this graph here breaks down each menu item that we saw earlier by component, then by ingredient, and then calculates the cost per ingredient summed by the portion amount for all the items. This is just a way to visualize which items will cost the most and help us calculate the final price that we should be charging for each menu item. And we're going to follow the rule of 3 for pricing. We're going to take the cost of each menu item and multiply it by 3. This will ensure that we are getting enough money to cover overhead costs, as well as potentially collect some revenue. So if we averaged out the price of each item by category, if somebody bought an entree, a side, and a drink from us, we would expect them to spend an average of $16.85. This stays within our $10 to $20 window, and this number here is what we're going to be using to calculate our break even. So here is where we take a look at our break-even number. This is the number of customers that we'll have to serve per event day to break even on our revenue, or just to reach $0. So our loan here is based on a $150,000 loan to cover the startup costs, and we can choose our terms down here. So if we choose a 5-year loan at 6% with 20% down payment, this will show our monthly loan payment, the total loan payment plus our monthly operating costs, the total amount of the loan we'll pay, and our operating costs per event day. Now the important number here is the number of customers per event day we'll have to serve to reach our break even. And we can play around with these buttons here and change the loan terms, but we're looking at about 100 to 130 customers per day to break even. In my opinion, it's a pretty high number for the Greenbrier Valley, but it's not unreasonable given the minimal amount of event days we've selected earlier. So this slide here shows our potential revenue projections. The graph on top shows our revenue if we choose the loan with the lowest overall payment. The one below here shows our revenue if we take the loan with the lowest monthly payment. It shows that our break-even point is lower if we choose the loan with the lowest monthly payment, but we'll have to keep in mind that we'll expect to stay in operation for longer. These sliders here will let us adjust our range of customers served per day, and we can see our average revenue for that day and the projected revenue for the whole season. So I wanted to include a page here that summarizes all of our findings from this project. The key takeaways are yes, it is viable to operate a mobile food vendor here in the Greenbrier Valley. It's a fun and ambitious project to think about, and it's a notoriously tough and unforgiving business that operates on thin margins and has a very high failure rate. Most people fail because they neglect to do the research beforehand. I wanted this project to serve as a means to show what type of research is needed to increase our likelihood of being successful. In total, we would need to serve 4,100 to 5,000 customers on the season to break even. We should be prepared to stay in operation until we reach that point. That means we should look at supplementing these event days with just regular business days to increase the number of customers we're able to serve. And food trucks work their best when they are ran efficiently and consistently. We need to focus on working with a small ingredient inventory to reduce our monthly overhead costs, and we must stay up to date with food costs and adjust our pricing appropriately. If we follow these guidelines here, we can ensure that we're running an operation that stays in business in the long run and will continue to serve the people here in our community in the Greenbrier Valley. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you again for your time.